Well, what's up, Next Level? You guys sounded awesome this morning in worship. Thanks to you for worshiping with us. My name's Scott. I'm the executive pastor. Our lead pastor is on a much-needed vacation, and so he'll be back next week. But I'm excited to continue our series, Movies, Modern Day Parables. And in this series, we take a look at a movie and pull out the spiritual truth in it. And where this comes from really is when Jesus was here in his public ministry on earth, he would often teach in parables. And what parables are, they're stories based on earth, based on what is around us. And Jesus would tell these stories and pull from culture. And so as you read through the Gospels, you'll see that Jesus uses farming and things like that to tell a story and illustrate a truth about God, about heaven, about our relationship with him. It's all designed to help his audience better understand the truth that he was trying to communicate. And in a lot of ways, movies are our modern day parables. Whether the director, whether the writers intended it to or not, so many of our movies, there's some spiritual truths in them. And in this series, we've been exploring various movies, and we pull out the spiritual truth and what it has to tell us about God and our relationship with him. And today is no exception. I'm excited about today's movie. It was released in 2018, and it was a pretty big success. It grossed $384 million versus only costing $90 million. So that's a pretty good net profit there. But not only was it a financial success, it also cleaned up at the award shows. In fact, it won Best Animated Feature at the Academy Awards in 2019. It was actually the first non-Disney Pixar movie to win that award since 2011. So Disney had a little dynasty going on, but this movie came in and dethroned the Disney Pixar films. But also won awards at the Golden Globes, the British Academy Film Awards, and the Annie Awards. It was so successful that a sequel was just released this past June. And so our movie today is none other than Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And it's one of my favorite movies. I absolutely love this movie. And if you're not familiar with this version of Spider-Man, what you need to know right off the top is this Spider-Man movie, Into the Spider-Verse, takes a little bit of a different turn in the sense that it doesn't follow Peter Parker, who is the OG Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man, and most of the movies are based on him. But Into the Spider-Verse is actually based on a teenager named Miles Morales, as he gets bitten by a radioactive spider and begins his journey to become Spider-Man. And we're going to meet Miles in our first scene here, so check it out. So in this first scene, we meet Miles and we get a glimpse of his life. He comes from a loving family. His parents want the best for him, and so they've taken him out of his middle school that's in his neighborhood and have put him in a private school where he stays Monday through Friday and then comes back on the weekends. And in this scene, we see the difference in the relationships that Miles has with the kids at his school. At his middle school in his neighborhood, he's got friendships, he's got relationships. He knows the kids. There's a bond there. But then when he gets to his new school, he's on the outside looking in. None of the kids really relate to him. They don't understand his humor. They don't like his jokes. They don't find him funny. He's on the outside. And on top of that, he's away from his family for the entire week. And so there's this feeling of loneliness and isolation that Miles starts to deal with. And these feelings of loneliness and isolation, they only start to increase when Miles is bitten by a radioactive spider and begins to develop his spider powers. And we're going to see how those feelings increase in our next scene here. Check it out. So in this scene, we see that Miles begins to develop his spider powers, and he's not sure what to do, and he's searching for answers, and the scene ends, and he's desperately looking for someone to talk to someone to tell about what's going on in his life, someone who can provide some answers. And he's scrolling through his contact list on his phone, just trying to see, who can I call? Who can I reach out to? And there's no one. He tries to call his dad, but after once or twice, he's like, no, he's not going to understand. And he hangs up, and there's no one that Miles can talk to, no one who understands what he's going through. And that scene ends. And as the movie starts to progress, Miles begins to meet other spider people. These are spider people who have come from other dimensions into his. And the very first one that he meets is a Peter Parker from a different dimension. And Miles is hoping that this Peter will teach him how to be Spider-Man. But all this Peter cares about is getting home, back to his dimension. So they break into a lab, steal some technology to try to get him home. And as they're escaping from this lab, they meet another spider person. Check it out. So Miles meets Gwen Stacy, aka Spider-Woman, aka Ghost Spider, and learns that she's isolated herself because there's been a tragedy. Her best friend has died, and she wasn't able to save him, and so she's cut herself off from having friends because in her mind it's easier. There's less distractions, it's less painful, and so she's going through life alone. She's doing the hero thing alone. But did you catch what she said on the bus to Miles? If you didn't, here's what she said. She says, "I know how hard it is to have to figure this stuff out on your own. It's kind of nice not being the only spider person around. We're probably the only ones who understand." So in a moment of authenticity, in a moment of vulnerability, Gwen admits that, hey, it's hard. Doing this thing on your own is hard. And there's not many people who understand, and it's nice to know that there is someone who gets it. It's nice to know that there's someone I can talk to who fully understands what's happening in my life, who I can be open and honest with. But she's not quite ready to do friends again. And she's still set on going through life alone. Well, as the movie continues, Miles, Gwen, and Peter soon learn and meet a whole bunch of other spider people and find out that they're even less alone than they thought. Check it out. Did you catch what they said at the end there? You're like me. What a powerful realization. It's this moment in the movie where you've got these 6 individuals who couldn't be more different. And when they meet, there's this realization that, hey, you're like me, that you understand what it's like, that you get what I'm going through, that you understand me. I'm not as alone as I thought I would be. And then these relationships start to form, and they build over the course of the movie, and they grow and they're tested until we get towards the end where they're finally ready to go home to their individual dimensions. And in this next scene, we see kind of where the relationships have gotten to over the course of the movie. Check it out. And so in this scene, we see that each of the spider people head back to their dimension, they go back with this renewed strength, this renewed power that, hey, I'm not alone. Like there's other people out there. I now have these friendships that I can draw strength and encouragement from. And perhaps the biggest change, the biggest shift we see is in Gwen, who when we first meet her, she wants nothing to do with friends. She, in a lot of ways, thinks life is easier without friends because of the pain that it brings. But at the very end, she's like, no, like life is easier with friends. I can't do this life on my own. This it's too hard. And so she heads back to her dimension with a renewed strength from the friendship. And in our last scene, we're going to see that as Miles reflects on the journey that he just had, of the things that he's learned from this entire situation and ordeal. Check it out. I love what Miles says at the end. He says, "When I feel alone, like no one understands what I'm going through, I remember my friends who get it. I never thought I'd be able to do any of this stuff, but I can. Anyone can wear the mask. You could wear the mask." And the reason he's able to say that at the end is because of the power that he draws, the strength that he draws from the friendships that he's made. He's not alone. He's not the only one. That when life gets hard, that when he thought he couldn't do it, he couldn't be Spider-Man, he drew inspiration and strength from all of the other Spider people, his friends that he met. And he's had quite the journey, right? He started off in the beginning of the movie alone, not feeling on the outside, just not having those relationships, and ends with a group of people that he can do life with, people that these lasting friendships that go beyond their differences. There's something about them that unites them. And this is why the parable of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is you can't do life alone. You can't do life alone. It's too hard. Life's too difficult to go through it on your own. You need other people. All 6 spider people learned this lesson. They were all trying to do it alone. And as they met each other and developed those friendships, they soon realized, right, that, hey, it's nice to have these friends. It's nice to know that I'm not alone, that there are other people like me. And this brings us back to our theme verse from Ecclesiastes. It's, "A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken." And this comes from the book of Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes is written by Solomon. And Solomon is known as the wisest man to have ever lived. See, he was a king of Israel in ancient times. And God shows up to him one night and says, Solomon, I will give you whatever you ask for. And Solomon could have asked for money, fame, power, whatever. And he asked for wisdom. And so God grants him wisdom. And Solomon becomes the wisest man to have ever lived. And he writes a book called Proverbs, filled with insights on life and wisdom and advice for us to follow. But he also writes this book of Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes is a little bit different than Proverbs. You see, as you read through Ecclesiastes, it's easy to get depressed. Because what Solomon is doing in Ecclesiastes is he's making observations about life here on earth. A phrase keeps coming up, life under the sun. He's making observations about our broken, fallen world that's full of hurt, that's full of pain, that's full of difficulties. And he's reflecting, he says, everything is meaningless. That it's all in vain. It's all chasing after the wind. It's all here one day, gone the next. It's all meaningless. And it's easy to get depressed as you read through Ecclesiastes until the end when he ultimately points back to Jesus and the hope that we have in him. But it's in this book that we find our verse about two is better than one. And to fully understand what Solomon is driving at, we have to back up a little bit and read the verses before this. And so here's what Solomon says in Ecclesiastes 4, verses 7 and 8. He says, I observed yet another example of something meaningless under the sun. This is the case of a man who is all alone, without a child or a brother, yet who works hard to gain as much wealth as he can. But then he asks himself, who am I working for? Why am I giving up so much pleasure now? It is all so meaningless and depressing. So Solomon is setting up this compare and contrast. He's setting up this, he's going to show us one person and then go talk about the benefits of another way. So the first person he sets up, he says, hey, there's this person who is busy with life, who's out chasing their hopes, their dreams, and whatever else they're going to, and they get it all. They accomplish everything they set out to accomplish, but they've neglected their friendships. They've neglected their relationships. And in a moment of reflection, they look around and say, I've done all this stuff, but I'm alone. It's meaningless, it's empty, it's not fulfilling. And Solomon's ultimate point is that living life alone makes life worse. That you could accomplish everything, but if you're alone, it makes life worse. But he just doesn't stop there. He then provides a better way, a better path. And here's what he says in verses 9 through 12. He says, two people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But if someone who falls alone is in trouble. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple-braided cord is not easily broken. And so these verses stand in stark contrast to the first few verses where Solomon says, hey, living life alone makes life worse. But when you have relationships, when you have friendships, it makes life so much better. And why does he provide this? Because he knows that the warning is not enough. He knows it's just simply by saying, hey, living life alone makes life worse. He knows that there's introverts out there who say, challenge accepted. I hear what you're saying, Solomon, but I'm going to prove you wrong, and I'm going to do life alone because I don't need anyone. But Solomon says it's going to make your life worse. On top of that, there are so many benefits to having friends, to not doing life alone. And here's just some of the benefits that he lists. The first benefit that he lists is it makes life easier. He says they help each other succeed. That when you're by yourself, there's a lot of times where it's hard to do things by yourself. That I think about times when I was trying to build our daughter's crib, and I'm putting it together, and there were times where I couldn't do it myself. I needed someone else. I needed help. And there's countless times in our lives where doing it on our own just makes it harder. That when we have somebody with us, it makes it easier and helps us succeed. The second benefit, he says, that by not doing life alone is help in times of need. He says if one falls, the other can reach out and help. That there are times in our life where we go through hard times, where we need something. And if we're on our own, there's nobody there to meet that need, nobody there to help us. But if we have friends, there's people in our lives that can come alongside and meet those needs. The third benefit he lists is there's comfort in hard times. He says, keep each other warm. That life is difficult, right? Life is hard. That there's going to be moments in our life where it's a struggle. It's not always going to come easy. And if we're by ourselves, we have to face those trials, those difficulties on our own. It wears us down. And Solomon says, hey, when you've got somebody, when there's two of you, that the other one can provide comfort in those hard times, that they can help carry that burden, and you don't have to carry it alone. And the fourth benefit that he lists is safety and security, that two can stand back to back, right? There's safety in numbers. There's a security that when you've got somebody who's got your back, it fills you with confidence. It feels you feel safe and secure, which can't happen if you're doing life alone. So Solomon lists these benefits of two being better than one, but then he does something unexpected at the end. You would think that to close out this section of verses, he would say something along the lines of, hey, go make sure you've got a friend. Two is always better than one, but he doesn't. He then says, three are even better, that a triple braided cord is not easily broken. Well, why does he do that? Why does he jump from two to three? He just got done telling us all the benefits of two being better than one. Why does he jump to three? Well, the answer lies in what the third cord represents. See, he's talking about the benefits of friendship in these verses, right? And how do we typically determine our friends or build our friendships? It's through common interests, through common hobbies, season of life, age, like all these different things are how we usually base our friendships off of. And Solomon's saying, hey, those types of friendships are good. Those types of friendships have real benefits. You'll get all the benefits that I just talked to, but there's another type of friendship that's even stronger. Another type of friendship that truly gives you strength, that transcends all of that. And that's a Jesus-centered friendship. See, the third cord that Solomon is talking about here, that third cord is Jesus. And he says when there's two people who are friends and Jesus is at the center of their friendship, that friendship is so much better than just a regular friendship based on all of the different things that we normally base our friendships on. And so that naturally brings up the question of what's the difference between a regular friendship and a Jesus-centered friendship. I love what the author Jonathan Holmes, how he puts it and what the difference is. He says, biblical friendship exists when two or more people, bound together by a common faith in Jesus Christ, pursue him and his kingdom with intentionality and vulnerability. Rather than serving as an end in itself, biblical friendship serves primarily to bring glory to Christ, who brought us into friendship with the Father. It is indispensable to the work of the gospel in the earth and an essential element of what God created us for. So here you have Holmes saying, hey, Jesus-centered friendships, they're bound together by Jesus, by a common faith, not by age, not by common interests, not by hobbies, not by seasons of life, not by where you live. He's saying true Jesus-centered friendships, there's a common faith, that Jesus is the one who unites the friends, and that these are essential to the Christian life. He goes on to say this. He says, biblical friendship must be centered on Christ and mediated by his sacrificial death on the cross. A friendship built on anything less, whether short-lived social demographics or digital interactions, cannot bear the same fruit, survive the same tests, or deliver the same satisfaction. In a lot of ways, Holmes is echoing Solomon, that friendship based on all the demographics, the digital interactions, whatever it is, that they have real benefits. They bear fruit, that you can derive some satisfaction out of that. But a true Jesus-centered friendship, it bears even more fruit. It can withstand even more stress, even more tests. It provides even more satisfaction. Think back to Miles and all the different spider people. They're about as different as you can get. Right? They're all living life alone. They're from different dimensions. They're different ages. They're different seasons of life. They've got different interests. I mean, one's a spider pig, right? Like they're all so different. How are they able to be friends? It's because they looked at each other and said, you're like me. There's something there that transcends all of these different things. There's something there that transcends our ages, us being from different dimensions, our interests. There's something there that unites us, that we can draw strength from. You're like me. And for those of us that are Jesus followers, we can have that same realization. We can experience the same power in that truth. When we look at another Jesus follower, we can say, hey, you're like me. Because we both know the price that Jesus paid for us. We've both experienced that the outpouring of grace, of love, of forgiveness, of mercy, of acceptance. We know that there's a common goal to become more like him. We know that we have a common hope, a common peace, that when life gets hard, we know that there's more to this life than just what we're experiencing, that we ultimately are following a Savior who has conquered the world. We can look at another Jesus follower and say, you're like me. It unites us. It's a bond that's stronger than our hobbies, than our ages, than our seasons of life. Because here's the reality. Hobbies change, interests shift, People move, seasons of life change, but the one thing that stays the same in the lives of Jesus followers is Jesus. And a true Jesus-centered friendship that's based on him can withstand all of that. And so if you're a Christian, you're not meant to do life alone. You're not meant to wander out and pursue Jesus on your own, that following Jesus isn't a solo thing. As much as we think it may be, as much as we try to make it a solo thing, following Jesus is best done in a community. It's best done with friendships, best done in relationship, because then there's someone there who can hold you accountable, who can encourage you, who can pray for you as you experience difficulties, who can call you out when you're about to do something dumb, who can provide wisdom and insight and perspective that maybe you can't see. And so here we have Jesus, Solomon, and Spider-Man all telling us the same thing. You can't do life alone. I don't know about you, but that's a pretty compelling case. But there's some of you who still be like, yeah, I'm gonna try. And ultimately that's your decision. But I would encourage you to heed the wisdom of the God of the universe, of the wisest man to have ever lived, and Spider-Man, that you can't do life alone. Ultimately, the parable of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse can be summed up by this quote from Nikki Martin. She's a program head of early childhood studies at the University of Gulf-Humber. I don't even know how to say that, but here's what she says. She says, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a reminder that we are not on our own, that we need each other. We are stronger together. It reminds us of the importance of connection, relationships, and asking for help. For those of us that are Jesus followers, this parable is even more important because life is too hard. It's too difficult. It's too painful. And becoming like Jesus is more important so that we have to do life together. We have to have those Jesus-centered relationships. We can't try to do it on our own because there's too much at stake to try to go off on our own. And so I want to ask these questions to help you think through. Are you doing life alone? Are you trying to do life alone? Do you have Jesus-centered relationships in your life? And here's some questions to help you reflect, to help you see, hey, I think I'm trying to do life alone. The first question is, do you have someone in your life with whom you can talk openly and honestly about how you feel and how you're doing? Do you have someone in your life with whom you can talk openly and honestly about how you feel and how you're doing? Second question, do you have someone you can be honest with about any struggles, fears, or temptations you deal with without fear of being judged? Is there someone you can go to that you can share these things and you know that they're gonna not judge you because there's that realization that you're like me, that you're a sinner just like me and you've experienced God's grace just like me? Do you have someone in your life like that? Third question, do you have people you can call at a moment's notice who will pray for you and with you if you need it? And lastly, do you have people in your life who will tell you the truth even when you don't want to hear it, even when it's hard, even when it's painful? Are there people in your life who will tell you the truth? Because as you ask yourself the question, the temptation is going to be to say yes, because we're surrounded by people, right? Our families, our jobs. We've got hundreds of followers on Instagram, TikTok. We got Facebook friends out the wazoo. We say, hey, I'm not alone. I've got all these people. But as you reflect on these questions, are there specific people? Can you put names to these questions? And if the answer is no, I just want to give you one step that you can take to start on the journey of developing Jesus-centered relationships. And that's to sign up for and attend Pizza with the Pastor. Now you're like, that's a weird step. Yeah, sure, it could be. But here's what happens at Pizza with the Pastor. When you sign up for and attend Pizza with the Pastor here at Next Level, you start to meet people, but it also puts you on the path to get connected in a small group or get connected on a serve team. And in those environments, you start to meet people. You start to interact with people. And you start to build those Jesus-centered relationships. And you invest in those, and those grow. This isn't the only way, but this is a way. That is, if you're sitting there and you can't put names to these questions, I encourage you to take that step. You can scan the QR code and sign up for Pizza with the Pastor and, coming up in a couple weeks, and you'll begin that journey. But if you answered yes to these questions, if you can put names to these questions, I would encourage you, don't don't neglect those relationships. Continue to invest and develop. You found those relationships. You found a treasure. Hold on to it. Life gets busy, right? Time slips by, and it's easy to let those relationships go by the wayside. Don't. Invest in them. Pour into them. Develop them. Make time for them, because you can't do life alone. That you have to follow Jesus in community, that you need somebody to go alongside you in that journey. And if you're here today and this is your first time hearing about Jesus and you're not sure, I'd love for you to begin a friendship with Jesus, that you can talk with him and have this friendship where he forgives your sins and he brings you into his family, and then you've got someone who will walk with you through life, who you can build your foundation on. And so if you want to meet Jesus, you want to have that friendship with him, I'm going to ask that everybody bow your heads, close your eyes, and I'm going to lead you in a prayer. And you can just pray this quietly. But as I pray, just pray quietly if you're ready to start a journey, a friendship with Jesus. Would you pray with me? Jesus, I thank you that you love me and you care for me so much that you died on the cross for my sins. And I admit that I am a sinner, that I've done wrong things, but I need your grace and your forgiveness in my life. And I'm ready to begin a journey of friendship with you. And so I invite you into my life. I'm surrendering my life to you. In your name, amen.